Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, the Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as regularly by our Birmingham City correspondent Alex Dicken, hopefully fresh or rested from his long trip to Middlesbrough at the weekend. Alex, how are you?
Good, thank you, Brian. Not the result we would have wanted, but plenty of encouragement, I think, which we'll come on to.
Yeah, indeed. Just to lay the table, obviously we're going to look back at the 2-1 loss at the Riverside. Talk to Alex about his big takeaways from that. Maybe look at a little bit of the team selection. Have a look at the latest news. There's been some breaking news this morning with Paik Seung-ho. Look at the five game run that's got into since the last international break. 3 wins for Blues in those 5 games. There's a third of the season gone, so we're going to look at that as well. See what we've learned about the Blues so far this season. And Alex and I are going to have a go at picking our early front runner for player of the season. So, without further ado, Alex, what's your big takeaway from your day at the Riverside?
I think it was always going to be a strange game, and in the media room beforehand, we were debating what impact Rob Edwards not being Borough manager for the day would have on Middlesbrough. It's obviously going to go one of 2 ways. They could either, look like a team without direction and instruction and play poorly, and Blues continue their form and run all over them, or they could be a really galvanised team, backed by their supporters, and that's kind of what they were. When the players walked out, the noise, I felt like it was going to be a very awkward, difficult afternoon for Blues, just because you could sense that the supporters who were there, 24,000 of a Borough persuasion, were right behind the team. It was like kind of do it in spite of Edwards. And kind of the theme tune of the afternoon was a chant about Rob Edwards being something. I'm not surprised by the result. I thought Blues within the game did quite well. That's what I will take away. Probably their best away performance of the season. They created some really, really good chances, and second half created the better chances. I felt had 3 that they perhaps could have scored. Jay Stansfield very early in the second half won a block tackle with Luke Ayling, runs down the left, and he's in a great position to score. He clearly wanted to find Marvin Duksh, and the pass wasn't really on when he should have had more conviction to go with himself. And it was a very tame effort in the end that Solberg didn't really have to work hard to save. And then there were 2 headed chances, one for Patrick Roberts, which took a nick off the defender in front of him that he probably did well to direct on target, and one for Tomoki Iwata, where Kyogo effectively got on his way, really, and put him off a little bit. And that was a big, big chance. You'd have hoped that he would have scored that one. So I think Blues can take comfort from the fact it was their best away performance of the season. But, having said that, they have lost 5 of their 8 away games. So that's something that obviously does need correcting.
Don't worry, Alex. We can take some sort of consolation from the fact Blues won the XG. Yellow card. I'm going to yellow card myself there.
Yeah, you're bummed. Yeah,
exactly. I did actually think the best chance that Blues had came in the first half, which was Cochrane's ball to the back stick to Roberts. And, he's just hit the goalkeeper there anywhere else, hasn't he? And it is a goal. So, yeah. What were your thoughts about the team selection? Because we debated this beforehand, before the game, didn't we? Does he stick or twist? Does he go with the same team for the 3rd game running? And that's what he did. And you can absolutely understand why, can't you, really, to be fair?
Yeah, you're in a way, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, aren't you? I mean, if Blues had, if you changed the team and they'd lost, then we'd all be saying, why did you change the team? But, he stuck with the same team. I think we'd all have done that based on the strength of the previous 2 performances. And it just looked like a game too many for some. Marvin Duksh in particular, he just could not work his way into the game at all. Struggled to have any kind of impact. And, he's probably kind of lucky to last 50-odd minutes, which he did in the end. Tomoki Iwata.
I told you Lyndon Dykes should have started, didn't I? Did I not say that?
You did, but imagine the uproar if Marvin Duksh hadn't been on the team sheet. Tomoki Iwata, again, I actually thought he gave the same kind of output. I wouldn't say it was as he was as marauding as he was against Portsmouth and Millwall, but he gave a lot going forward. plenty of runs beyond Roberts. First half, he got in beyond him about 3-4 times, and just the end product was bad. Maybe that's an accumulation of games and minutes and sprints that was taking its toll on him. So he wasn't the same player as he was in the previous 2 games. But as you said, Brian, I mean, if he could have done that again, he would have quite literally been Superman. So I don't think Chris Davies could do anything but name the same 11, to be honest.
No. I mean, to be fair, that same 11 didn't play together for very long, did it? Paik, was it the 4th minute that Paik went down? We've had an update from the South Korean FA today. Just bring us up to date with that, please.
Yeah, so they've reported that Paik won't join up with them for their friendlies in this international window against Bolivia and Ghana. No great surprise there, given the way Paik went down. Looked, again, a very innocuous one, but they're always the ones that worry you most, aren't they? And he stayed down for 3 or 4 minutes needing treatment after landing awkwardly on his shoulder. And I asked Chris Davies afterwards, did his shoulder pop out on the field? And he said he believes so. So it's a dislocated shoulder. There are varying degrees, aren't there?
Yeah, it's a big spectrum. Yeah,
with a dislocated shoulder. Sometimes players will have it and just, he pop back in and they'll play on. This is obviously too bad for that. And he did look to be in some serious discomfort, quite a lot of pain, as he was on the field and when he was walking down into the tunnel as well. I think the club doctor was almost holding it in place. So it looked pretty bad. Obviously, he'll get a scan on that and we'll know more before the Norwich game next week as to whether it's just a knock or whether it's going to keep him out for any length of time.
Yeah, obviously surgery being the worst case scenario because, without speculating about it, obviously surgery, it takes a lot longer to recover from than not having surgery. So we've talked about Paik's role an awful lot in recent weeks, some bad, a lot very good recently. How did you feel Leonard and Doyle sort of dovetailed? If the point behind the question being that if we are going to have to do without Paik for some weeks, you would imagine that Leonard would be the next cab off the rank.
Yeah, and I mean, he could quite easily put Iwata back into midfield, I suppose, to play next to Doyle, which I think would work. Could bring Bright Asai Samuel on at right back. Although, given the fact he didn't bring Asai Samuel on at the Riverside, suggests he's not particularly high on him at the moment. And obviously likes Iwata at right back. I mean, he did put Kumas as a right wing back, didn't he, as he went to a 3-5-2 towards the end, or a 3-4-3. So, yeah, he could play Iwata in there. Leonard, I thought, given the circumstances, he did okay. Because, I mean, it's hard coming on as a sub, I think, in that position anyway, because you're right in the thick of the action. But to come on as a sub in the first minute in the 5th minute when you really would not expect to be coming on at all, I thought he did okay. He wasn't as good on the ball as Doyle. I thought there were moments where he recycled it well. But he probably doesn't give you the explosiveness going forward of Paik does. Paik can really charge the ball sometimes and break into good positions, particularly down the left. And Mark Leonard's not that player. Tommy Doyle's not that player. Tomoki Iwata's not that player. So Paik at his best, we know that Blues will really miss. So hopefully isn't a long-term thing.
Indeed. We'll obviously know more in the build-up to the Norwich match, I think, isn't it? Blues going up will return against another team with doubts over their managerial position, albeit it might be filled by then. There's lots of talk about Gary O'Neill going in there at the moment. As I said at the start, we are now sort of just about to enter the final international break of the year. In between the two breaks, it feels very different, doesn't it? Blues went into the last international break on the back of that draw at Wrexham, I think I'm right in saying. They played 5 games, lost to Hull, won away at Preston, which I'm going to suggest might be the most underrated away win of the season when we look back at this back in May. Lost badly at Bristol City, albeit only by a goal, and then 2 4-0 wins, and then this defeat. Takeaways. Just think back to the feel of the team and the club after that Wrexham game and going into the previous international break, Alex, and compare it with now. Feels a lot better, doesn't it?
Yeah, the very fact Chris Davies was questioned, Tom Wagner, when he was on Sky Sports, was questioned about Chris Davies and whether he was the right man for the job at that stage, kind of tells you the position Blues are in, because those questions have evaporated now. That's not even a conversation, probably largely due to Wagner shutting it down on 2 occasions. So I feel like they've been much better. Was it 5 points in the last period between international breaks? 9 in this one. 9 is about what they need. 9 points from 6 games gets you to 69 points over the course of a season. That's around playoff form, isn't it? So they've got a little bit of catching up to do to be on target for that still. But I've been quite happy with what we've seen. I think the away win at Preston, like you said, massively underrated. If they could just do another 2 or 3 of those, before Christmas, that would be quite good. And the home form, as we've seen, is very, very solid. One of the best in the league at home. It's the away form that does need correcting. They need to probably figure out, I'm not saying a different way to play away from home, but they need different ways and different routes to goal, because teams seem to be sitting back and picking them off a little bit when they go away from home. I mean, Bristol City's the perfect example, isn't it? They had, in that game, there was literally one decent attack or one decent chance to break against Blues, and they took their chance and then shut up shop. So if you go ahead against a team like Bristol City, I think it's very hard for them to come back and get back into that match. So they just need to be more effective away from home. I was actually saying earlier, and that's an interesting thing to take up now, Brian, without the international breaks. Although they're a negative at the start of the season for us all, because it's boring. We don't want to go to international footballs and dead rubbers in international football that mean nothing. We want club football. I do feel like it gives managers a chance to reset, doesn't it? Blues from last international break or before last international break to this one is chalk and cheese, isn't it? So there's not going to be that anymore, is there? I think we're probably going to see the Championship really start to take shape in the next 5 games after the international break. And then that's kind of the trajectory those teams are going to go on, because there's not going to be many changes. There's not going to be a chance to sit back and take stock for another 2 weeks. It's going to be Saturday, Tuesday, and there you go. And the league will start to take shape. So hopefully Blues go into this one in good form, having found the right combinations, that it leads to, a similar trajectory after the international break, because I wouldn't have liked to have gone into it on the form they had in September, early October.
Yeah. And that is, you've used the phrase that I wanted to pick up on there, right combinations. The side, for the big takeaway from me from this spell of 5 games between the international breaks, is the side looks more settled now all over the pitch, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's alighted on Iwata and Patrick Roberts on the right-hand side, which has been absolutely sensational in this 3-game spell. Middlesbrough side a little bit, but he still did work at Middlesbrough. They still got into the right areas. The quality end product wasn't there. The midfield combination of Peck and Doyle seems to be balanced enough for Championship football, I think. They seem to have enough about them there.
And we were worried about that one, not being a bit lightweight or, not being physical enough, weren't we?
We were, yeah, definitely, because Iwata is the most physical of Blues 4 midfield players, and that's why we almost looked at, if Iwata's not there, Leonard's probably going to have to play there to give Blues a little bit more height and power. But Doyle's playing that 6 role excellently, and Peck's been doing it very well next to him, so that's worked. Clara and Phil Neumann are a big win from this batch of fixtures. They've shown they can keep clean sheets in Championship games and play very well together. And obviously another one is Marvin Duction and Jay Stansfield. Duction in those 2 home games is absolutely superb. So that's something Chris Davies again alluded to it after the Borough game. We need to keep him fit and keep him on the field, really. And that's going to be key to us. So, Marvin Duction has become a really, really big player in the space of this last 2-3 weeks of Blues. So long may it continue.
And actually, I can't think of a better phrase than this, but I'll use it anyway. Phil Neumann was reintroduced into the side during this 5-game spell away at Preston, and he's almost been like a new signing, hasn't he? I know he very much is the definition of a new signing, but after his first sort of tentative steps into the Championship and then dropping out of the side, and then Jack Robinson's red card at Hull affording Neumann the opportunity to come back in maybe a little bit wiser and a little bit smarter and a little bit more physical. He looks like he's been a find again, doesn't he? You alluded to that a little bit when you talked about the Neumann and Clara combination. But yeah, Neumann feels a little bit more like the player now than he did, that we thought we were signing, than he did at the start of the season, right?
I think you often see it, don't you, when new players come to the league. He's had the 5 games in the team at the start of the season. Has probably not always played that well, but dropped out the team, had 5 games to watch the championship and how it all works on the sidelines. And he seems to have kind of twigged and cracked it a little bit, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's had the physicality that's needed in the games that he's played recently. I thought he looked a little bit leggy against Middlesbrough, but maybe that's to be understood because, how many times in when he was playing in the Bundesliga 2 would he have played 3 games in 8 days? Probably not that many. They have a nice Christmas break as well, don't they?
Certainly not at that intensity as well.
Exactly. So I've really liked Neumann since he's come back into the team. And maybe we'll look back at the end of the season and say, well done to Jack Robinson for getting that red card and giving Blues the answer they needed at centre-back.
Maybe. Yeah. Listen, it's not been perfect for Neumann. As you said, he could have been a bit stronger. I would have liked to have seen him put Conway and the ball into the stand in the build-up to the Middlesbrough second goal. And obviously he had his part to play against Sinclair Armstrong at Bristol City. But it feels like progress. It feels like the combination has emerged and they're starting to play better together. The other thing that's happened in these last... I've been saying 5 games. It's 6 games, isn't it? Yeah. In his last 6 games since the international break, Blues have started scoring goals. They've scored, I think. Let's have a look. 12 in those 6 games.
Yeah.
What's why? One of them was Bristol City when it looked like they never scored a goal in their lives. Why 12 goals? Do you feel what's happened there? Particularly, I suppose I'm more thinking about the last 3 games, aren't they? Because the whole game where they had this lost 3-2, scored a couple. It was a bit of a knockabout match, wasn't it? But it feels more sustainable, and it feels now after the 3 games, Portsmouth, Millwall, Middlesbrough. It feels now like they're creating more, and the handbrake is off. Is that what I'm seeing?
I think we can definitely put it down to some of the coaching. If you look at the set pieces, they've clearly been working on that, and they've had 4 set piece goals, including the one at Borough. I think five set piece goals during this batch of fixtures, if you include the Preston one too. So that's been a route to goal. That's become a route to goal. And that wasn't really a route to goal for Blues last season, much was it? So that's very positive. They can start adding set-piece goals on a more regular basis as well. I think the combinations we spoke about just have really helped. It's particularly at one on the right-hand side. 3 of the 4 goals against Millwall were created from that right-hand side and the movement between Patrick Roberts and Smoky Awata. So I think, they've just got more quality. They've got the good players, the best players on the pitch, I think, for the majority of the game now. The starting 11 does feel like,
it does.
The best group of best 11 players at the club, in my opinion. Sorry to those who are on the bench, but I think that's Chris Davies, I think, said maybe before the October international break, he wanted to find his best 11, and he hadn't quite done it by then, had he? Because he was still chopping and changing. But in the last 3 games, he's in the same starting 11 for the first time this season. And that's got to help, hasn't it? It was Blues play their best football last season when there's continuity, and it's not exactly a great surprise. So I think we'll see that same 11 all being, actually, of course, we might not with Paik, but all being well with Paik, I think we'll see that same 11 after the international break as well. So I think that is it now. That's the 11 he's going to want to try and get back to.
Be interesting to see what he does with Willem Willemsen when we think he's going to be knocking on the door, don't we, after the international break? So it will be interesting, as I say, just to see whether he thinks Thor is worth interrupting the certain current continuity. Third of the season gone, or after 30 minutes of the game against Norwich, there will be exactly a third of the season gone. But, well, it's important to get some of the details right, isn't it? 15 games gone. Blues are 11th. What have we learned from these 15 games in terms of a pointer for where the rest of the season, or how the rest of the season might go?
I think I've mentioned it a few times, but my frustration at the start was that I felt Blues would have an advantage coming up and the continuity they had from last season, and they just didn't have that. And I feel like they let some of those early results slip away while they were chopping and changing and trying to find the right combinations. I feels like at this international break, at this juncture in the season, they're quite well set. We've mentioned the 11, subs. Some of the subs are coming on, having a good impact. They've still got some players to come back. Ethan Laird, I think, will give Blues another dimension again when he comes back. So Kyogo still has got to hit some form at some stage, hopefully. So there's going to be those goals, please. I think Blues are in a pretty good place. I think Chris Davies has probably learned a lot about the Championship in these games. He's mentioned a couple of times the quality of the wingers has surprised him at times. So there are clearly things that he didn't expect as much in this league. So he's learned a lot about the league in these first 15 games. The players, most of them hadn't played Championship football before, so they've obviously learned a lot too. Speaking to Alex Cochrane last week, he said kind of how it was really tough at the start and they've been kind of adapting and getting used to it. So that's clearly been a thing. I feel like Blues are going to get stronger. I'll say that now and they won't, but I feel like Blues are in a good position to get stronger. I feel like across the season now before Christmas, they should be able to consistently get results. I'm not saying they're not going to lose because they are, but if they can continue a longer 9-10 points from 6 games or hopefully a little bit better, I think that's good, and that's probably about where they are. I think they have shown in these 6 games that they can be a playoff contender. They can stay in that chasing pack and be one of those teams. They were narrowly beaten by Middlesbrough, and I actually thought on the balance of play they deserved at least a point. That's a Middlesbrough team that are second in the Championship and haven't lost at home. So the signs are pretty good, I think, based on these last 3 games or this block.
Yeah, so just to refer to the table, Blues have 21 points from 15 games. If we extrapolate that, as in times it by 3, that gives 45 games, 63 points. Throw maybe one and another point on or 3 points on for the 46 game. So Blues are knocking on the door. They're currently 4 points off the playoffs. Millwall are in 6th place on 25 points. Hull City have also got 25 points. Preston are 4th on 26 and Stoke are 3rd on 27th. So
you've just named 2 teams that Blues have beaten recently, and one of them quite comfortably.
Exactly. They've gone to Preston and won away, and they've hammered Millwall at home. They are close. They are close, aren't they? And it feels like, if you think about the first international break when they went into that on the back of the away loss to Leicester, there were lots of question marks there. Even more question marks going into the October international break. And now we're seeing answers, I think. So, yeah, go on.
And Brian, what I always like to look at is how well is a team playing. I don't think they're playing massively well in August. I thought they played really well opening night against Ipswich, but then maybe performances just dipped a little bit.
Yeah, they were well better than Oxford. Probably lucky to win at Blackburn.
Yeah. And then you look at September games. I don't think they played particularly well. I think if you look right up to maybe Bristol City, they probably didn't play that well. They showed a steeliness to them away at Preston to get a win there. But in the last 3 games, I think they've played well. And when a team starts to play well, that's when the results are going to come more often than not. So they're creating chances. They've created a lot of chances in all 3 of those games against 3 very different teams. I think two of those teams in Millwall and Middlesbrough, a lot of people would expect to be in the promotion conversation at the end of the season. So I think they are looking quite good. I mean, and hopefully that does carry on after these 2 weeks off.
Yeah, indeed. So I think the big takeaway is that Blues are progressing, they're improving, and they are in with a shout. Just yet, I think for me, it's still too early to say they're definitely going to finish in the top 6. Go on.
Just generally, Brian, which teams have actually impressed you this season? Because the team that's probably impressed me most is St Andrews is currently, I think, 18th in the league, and that's Swansea.
And they can't buy a win at the moment, can they? Yeah. I mean, Coventry, obviously. I thought Coventry were strides ahead of Blues, albeit Blues had to get a man sent off in that game. Which teams have impressed me? I mean, Stoke are solid.
I like Stoke.
Seen a couple of games of Stoke in the flesh.
I think, to be fair, better finishing.
Middlesbrough are solid as well. There's Coventry and 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 maybe solid teams, and I think Blues are one of those potentially solid teams. Yeah, no,
I'd agree. I think Stoke could have blown Blues away in that first half, but that was clearly just an issue that Cochrane was having with Manhoff a lot of the time. So take that out of the equation. It was probably a tighter game. like you say, Borough were decent. I don't think they were brilliant. Is a very even game between two decent sides who I think will both be around the same position come the end of the season. I don't see Borough being top two. So that probably will be. Coventry, like you say, Brian, I think are the best we've seen. Ipswich, I do expect to come through because of the squad they've got, but it's so tight, tighter than I thought it would be, and tighter than most Championship seasons have been in recent years.
So Millwall are in the playoff places with a negative goal difference. Now, Richard Wilford often cites goal difference as as quite a big variable or indicator of how good a side is. I mean, Millwall did not look great, did they, when they came to Blues at all? They clearly are going to be strong at home. Am I right to feel slightly irked by the fact that Blues have got the same number of points of Wrexham? Why does that bother me, Alex?
They haven't got as many points as Charlton, so that probably would bother me more. Wrexham, I think Wrexham. We've spoken about this, and you're always trying to bring Wrexham onto this podcast.
I know, I'm just SEO mad. Just Ryan Reynolds and Rob. If only I could say Rob McElhenney more reliably, I'd say that in every podcast virtually.
They signed good players, didn't they? I think they signed experienced players and some good Championship players. I don't think they'll be in the conversation for promotion come the end of the season, but I think they'll be all right. I could see them finishing 14th, 15th. I'm probably more impressed with Charlton, actually, of the teams that have come up with Blues. I think
decent manager.
You always knew that Nathan Jones, love him or loathe him, would put together a Championship a team that was effective in the Championship because he's done it before, hasn't he? But yeah, I think I wouldn't be that disappointed at this point in the season that Blues and Wrexham have the same points. I don't think it'll end that way. No.
And the other thing we haven't mentioned is Ipswich feel like they're just starting to unfurl themselves a little bit, doesn't it? So,
and they've had the lifeline of that game at Blackburn that they're definitely going to lose being replayed as well, because if they win that game, I think they'll go up to 4th. So that's important for them.
If we have to pick a player of the season now, and just to let anyone know who is listening or watching, we really did try and come up with a different name each, but we haven't managed to. Just Alex, if you're awarding the player of the season or player of the third of the season, let's make that a real award. Who's it going to?
Jack Robinson. It's a joke. Christoph Clara, it's got to be.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah. He's played every minute in the league, hasn't he? And he's obviously had to deal with 3 different defensive partners. Back four's been constantly changing. I think his performances have been pretty consistent. I wouldn't say he's been at his best. We've seen his best, not just in League One because it's a different level, but we've seen his best in games against top level opposition last season in Newcastle and dealing with some very, very capable strikers. So I think Clara's top end Championship centre back. And I think he's navigated this period as a captain quite well, I think, as well. I don't think he's the loudest person in the world on the pitch, but he obviously leads by his actions and by example. And I think he's done very well and stayed true to himself throughout this season, even though there's been difficult points.
To be fair to Clara, we sort of sit on here and go, you don't like him exposed in one-on-one and you worry about his lack of pace. Not really been an issue. Now, you're probably going to come back to me and say, well, Blues have made sure it isn't and they've protected him. But you haven't really feared for him at all this season in terms of one-on-one, have you?
One game, Swansea, I think Inusa had him one-on-one a couple of times, didn't he? And Clara got booked quite early on. Apart from that, I think he's done it well. And he's not that Clara's exceptionally slow. I just think you've got Championship wingers who are very, very quick. And if they get one-on-one with most players, they're going to go by them. And Blues have managed it well. Moving him back into over to the left does help that a little bit. I think that's obviously why it was done initially. But I think the way that Clara's adapted that left-hand side role, given that he's not on his natural side, has been really good. And I actually think that Cochrane's helped. Cochrane's improved form has helped that because he's got more confidence. He's giving Clara a better out ball and making those passes himself rather than constantly turning, going back to Clara. So positive signs. And Clara, for me, you could make an argument for Jay Stansfield, couldn't you, Brian, as potentially, because given the goals that he's had, the goal contributions.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only other name that we could muster up between us, really, wasn't he? And even then, it wasn't close to Clara. I mean, Jay's done well. As you say, the goal contributions have been good. It's difficult when the sort of the most recent memory, in the spirit of you're only as good as your last kick, is him missing that chance at Middlesbrough. And, you know, normally he absolutely puts his foot through the ball, doesn't he? You know, I remember Wayne Rooney criticising for hitting the ball too hard when he was Blues manager, and Stansfield got a chance. But it just didn't make a good contact with that at all. Listen, Jay's been fine. Jay's been good. Jay has carried the goal-scoring burden quite well, I think, at a time when he's been moved around, when, you know, he's not really been sure of who he's playing with up front, at a time when there haven't been an abundance of chances, and, you know, most strikers, stroke forwards, are reliant on what's going on behind them. Is he better than Parr? He is better than Parr, I would say. I think he's done slightly better than what we'd expect. So good on him. But Clara it's head and shoulders, really, isn't it? Who's been the best signing?
I think there can only be one. I think so far, Patrick Roberts.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. I mean, he hasn't played as many games as a lot of the other signings that came in during the summer. But from the start, it was quite clear that he was a player that Blues needed. And I think he's created a different dimension down that right side with Smoky Awata. I think if you look at Roberts and you look at his goals and assists in the Championship over the years, they're not actually that good. I think his best season was maybe 2 goals, 10 assists for Sunderland in the league. But you can see why he's valued so highly by the managers that he's worked under, because, you know, if you're talking about hockey assists and pre-assists, he's always there, though, isn't he? I mean, you look at the game against Millwall. He got 1 assist, registered assist for that Pet goal, but he was heavily involved in the 2 goals. He played the pass before the assist, and he creates the spaces. You know, whether it's coming inside or going on the outside, he can go both ways. I think he's just been an excellent signing. He's a top-end Championship player. The question mark over him is obviously whether he's going to be good enough for a crack at the Premier League, be it at Blues or elsewhere, and he'll probably want that, I think, before you know, I think he's 29 before he turns 30, and he's got that. He's always going to be a free agent next summer. But I really like Patrick Roberts. I think he's made a huge difference to the way the Blues play.
So when we were talking about this off screen as well, I suggested Tommy Doyle, and you sort of scoffed at me on the basis.
No, you suggested Tommy Doyle for player of the season.
Did I? Are you sure?
Yeah. No, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. And that's what I scoffed at. Tommy Doyle would have been my second for signing of the season.
Okay.
Largely because I don't think many others have done that well.
Yeah. So Tommy Doyle has started 7. Roberts has started 8. Tommy Doyle's played in 15 matches. Roberts has played in 10. Albeit Doyle was here at the start of the season, wasn't he? And Roberts was a later arrival. Tommy Doyle is another name. Is he the name to knock off Patrick Roberts from being the signing of the summer? I don't know. I think if there's a slight disappointment, it's that it's not one of the permanent signings that we're picking out here. You know, obviously that they're both on loan, and Doyle will become a Blues player, won't he? We think is that absolutely nailed in? I
don't think so. I think it's largely dependent on where Blues finish, isn't it, and whether they can go up. So I don't think it's absolutely nailed on. No.
But I like Doyle as well. I think Doyle has brought something different, a range of passing to the central midfield. Obviously, it's allowed Iwata to maraud from right back, and yeah, I think Doyle has been a very, very astute signing. As we thought he was always going to be, but it's just taken a while to sort of get into the groove with Blues, hasn't it? Yeah,
we just doubted where he was going to play with Davies being so reliant and invested in Paik and Awata. But I think in the last 3-4 games, we've seen Awata playing at right back, and with Roberts, you know, bringing a new dimension to the way Blues play, and it's allowed Doyle to step into midfield, and I think he's dovetailed with Paik really nicely. So I see those combinations carrying on. I don't see why you would move away from them now. I think Awata looks like an excellent right back. Doyle and Paik look like they can be a complete Championship midfield pairing. So I'm quite happy with how, I know it's probably not by design that Chris Davies has arrived at this point but I'm quite happy with how it looks now.
Now I'm going to sit here and pretend that I thought Iwata at right back was always a good idea.
I'll keep coming back to it, Brian.
Right. There's several off-field talking points, but the main one, I think, is obviously we learned just before the match last week that Knighthead and Shelby, through Shelby, have completed virtually the complete buyout of Birmingham City. It's not significant news, is it? In terms of, only ever was Knighthead making the decisions at St Andrews, but it's symbolically relevant, isn't it? That chapter is now closed, and I cannot tell you how happy I am about that, because that was the Trillion Trophy BSL Birmingham Sports Holdings Limited BSHL era was a living nightmare. Blues were on life support for most of that, so we really applaud, and whatever happens with the stadium and the sports quarter, thank Tom Wagner for ending that near-death experience.
Yeah, like you say, Brian, I mean, for the last 2.5 years, it has only been Knighthead calling the shots at Blues, but it is now very much only one name above the door. There's only, Knighthead members on the board. The two people that were still linked to BSH are no longer on the listed as directors on Company's House. So yeah, they are completely rid of that chapter in the club's history, and hopefully now, the future looks very bright for Blues.
I'd have to say I'd forgotten about Edward and Zhao Wenking, and then when their names popped up in my alert email box, having got an alert from Company's House, I just thought, oh no, it was honestly, it was going like having a flashback, or reverting to the old PTSD kicked in again a little bit. I hadn't thought about those names for a couple of years, and it's now good that we'll never have to again. I think that about wraps it up, doesn't it, Alex? Should we point to quite an exciting podcast this coming later this week? Yeah. I've spoken to a former Birmingham City player and captain, which is a really interesting interview about his time at the club and how highly he rates Chris Davies and some of the Blues players in the squad at the moment.
Tell me who it is, Brian.
Do you think I should, or do you think?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we've got Troy Deeney, a podcast with Troy Deeney coming later in the week. I think coming out on Thursday, and he says some very complimentary things about Chris Davies and Jay Stansfield. So do listen out for that. Helps us get us through a footballer's weekend. Alex, thank you very much for your time. Thanks everybody for listening or watching along. Hit subscribe, leave a comment, but whatever you do, make sure you keep writing.